Kyle Morrison sat in the waiting room of the Galactic Medical Station and tried not to think about needles. He was 34 years old, had served in the military for 8 years, and had been shot twice during combat operations. But needles still made him uncomfortable. "You look nervous," Lisa Brooks said from the chair next to him. She was his liaison officer, assigned to make sure everything went smoothly during his visit to the station. "It's just a blood test." "Several blood tests," Kyle corrected. "And tissue samples. And bone marrow extraction." Lisa smiled. "The Galactic Council has done this with thousands of species. It's completely routine." Kyle knew she was right. Every species that wanted full membership in the Galactic Council had to undergo biological screening. Humanity had been provisional members for 2 years now, and this was just the next step in the process. Still, something about letting alien doctors examine his DNA made him uneasy. The door opened and a tall, thin figure entered the room. Dr. Velen was an Alkirian, one of the insectoid species known throughout the galaxy for their medical expertise. His forearms moved with precise coordination as he reviewed a datapad. Multiple eyes focused on Kyle. "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Velen said in perfect English, his translator working flawlessly. "Thank you for volunteering for this procedure. I assure you it will be painless and quick." "How quick?" Kyle asked. "The sample collection will take approximately 30 minutes. The analysis will take several hours, but you will not need to remain here during that time." Kyle stood up and followed Dr. Velen into the examination room. The space was clean and white, filled with equipment that looked both familiar and completely alien. Some devices resembled human medical scanners, while others had no recognizable purpose at all. "Please sit." Dr. Velen gestured to a chair in the center of the room. Another Alkirian, younger and smaller, was already preparing instruments on a nearby table. "This is Dr. Thren, my research assistant." Kyle sat down and rolled up his sleeve. Dr. Thren approached with what looked like a standard syringe, though the design was slightly different from human models. "We will collect samples from multiple locations on your body," Dr. Velen explained. "Blood, skin tissue, muscle tissue, and a small amount of bone marrow. This allows us to create a complete genetic profile of your species." "And you do this with everyone?" Kyle asked. "Every species that seeks council membership," Dr. Velen confirmed. "We have analyzed over 3,000 different life forms. Your species will be number 3047. The first needle went into Kyle's arm. He felt a small pinch, then nothing. Dr. Thren moved efficiently, filling several vials with dark red blood. Then came the skin sample from his forearm, a tiny scraping that barely registered. The muscle biopsy from his thigh was more uncomfortable, but still tolerable. "You are doing very well," Dr. Velen said. "The bone marrow sample will be the most uncomfortable, but it will be brief." Kyle gritted his teeth as Dr. Thren inserted a larger needle into his hip bone. The pressure was intense, and he felt a deep ache as the marrow was extracted. But true to Dr. Velen's word, it was over quickly. "All finished," Dr. Velen announced. "You may experience some soreness for the next day or two, but nothing serious." Kyle stood up and rolled his shoulders. "That wasn't too bad. We will contact you when the analysis is complete," Dr. Velen said. "Usually within 6 to 8 hours. You are free to return to your quarters or explore the station." Lisa led Kyle out of the medical center and toward the observation deck. The station orbited a beautiful green and blue planet, uninhabited but maintained as neutral territory for council meetings. "See?" Lisa said. "Nothing to worry about." Kyle rubbed his hip where the bone marrow had been extracted. "I guess not. What do we do now?" "Now we wait. Want to get something to eat?" They found a cafe that served food compatible with human biology and spent the next few hours talking about Earth, their families, and what full council membership might mean for humanity. Kyle had been chosen for this procedure, partly because of his medical background. As a former combat medic, he understood biology better than most diplomats. If there were any questions about the results, he could help explain human physiology. 3 hours after the procedure, Lisa's communicator beeped. She looked at the message and frowned. "What is it?" Kyle asked. "Dr. Velen wants us back at the medical center immediately." They rushed through the station corridors. When they arrived at the medical center, they found Dr. Velen and Dr. Thren standing over a series of displays showing microscopic imagery. Both Alkirians appeared agitated, their movements quick and jerky. "What's wrong?" Kyle asked. Dr. Velen turned to face him. "Mr. Morrison, we've encountered something highly unusual. Something that should not be possible." Kyle felt his heart rate increase. "Is something wrong with me? Am I sick?" "No, you appear to be in perfect health," Dr. Velen said. "But your cellular samples are behaving in a way we have never observed before." Dr. Thren brought up an image on the main display. Kyle could see what looked like cells under extreme magnification. Even without his medical training, he could tell something was wrong. The cells were moving aggressively, clustering and attacking. "What am I looking at?" Kyle asked. "These are your skin cells and your blood cells," Dr. Velen explained. "We placed them in the same containment dish for comparison analysis. This is standard procedure." "Okay," Kyle said slowly. And they are attacking each other," Dr. Thren said, his voice filled with confusion. "Your skin cells are trying to destroy your blood cells. Your blood cells are fighting back." Lisa stepped closer to the display. "That doesn't make sense. They're from the same person." "Exactly," Dr. Velen said. "Cells from the same organism should recognize each other as self. They should cooperate or at minimum ignore each other. But look at this." He brought up another image. This one showed different cells in what appeared to be organized combat. Some cells had ruptured. Others were clustering together like military formations. "Your muscle tissue is attacking your epithelial cells," Dr. Velen continued. "Your bone marrow sample is engaged in what can only be described as warfare with your skin cells. Every sample we took from different parts of your body is treating the others as foreign invaders." Kyle stared at the screens in disbelief. "But I'm fine. I'm healthy." "That is what disturbs us most," Dr. Velen said quietly. "You are clearly alive and functioning normally. Yet your cells, when separated from your body, immediately begin attacking each other. This violates every principle of biology we understand." Dr. Thren brought up more data. "We have analyzed samples from 3,046 other species. We have seen cellular rejection between different species. We have seen immune responses to pathogens. We have even seen cells from sick organisms behave erratically. But we have never, in all our research, seen cells from a healthy organism attack other cells from the same organism with this level of aggression." Kyle looked at Lisa, who appeared just as confused as he felt. "What does this mean?" Dr. Velen's multiple eyes focused on Kyle with an intensity that was almost frightening. "It means, Mr. Morrison, that human biology may be fundamentally different from every other species in the galaxy. And until we understand why your cells are trying to kill each other, we must consider you a potential biological hazard." Alarms began blaring throughout the medical center. Kyle saw Dr. Thren activate a containment field around the examination area where his samples were stored. "I am placing you under medical quarantine," Dr. Velen announced, "for your safety and ours until we understand what is happening inside your body." Kyle felt the room close in around him. He had volunteered for a simple medical screening, and somehow his own cells had turned him into a threat. As security officers arrived to escort him to an isolation chamber, he had only one thought: what was wrong with being human? The isolation chamber was comfortable but small. Kyle had been inside for 6 hours now, watching through the transparent wall as doctors and scientists from a dozen different species examined his cell samples. Lisa stood outside, refusing to leave despite being told she could go. "I brought you dinner," she said through the communication panel. A small slot opened in the wall, and a tray of food slid through. The station chef promised it's all human safe. Kyle picked at the food without much appetite. "Any news?" "They called in specialists from 3 different medical institutes," Lisa said. "And someone from Earth is coming." "Who?" "A Dr. Rebecca Torres. She's supposed to be one of our best molecular biologists." Kyle set down his fork. "They think something is wrong with me." "They think something is different about humans," Lisa corrected. "There's a difference." Through the window, Kyle could see Dr. Vellum talking with a tall, mantis-like alien. The newcomer had long, graceful limbs and a triangular head. His movements were slow and deliberate. "That's Counselor Dresch," Lisa explained. "He oversees medical ethics for the Galactic Council. His presence here means this is serious." The door to the medical center opened, and a human woman in her 40s entered, carrying several cases of equipment. She had dark hair pulled back in a practical bun and moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Dr. Rebecca Torres set down her equipment and immediately began examining the displays showing Kyle's cells. Even from inside the isolation chamber, Kyle could see her frown deepen as she reviewed the data. After 20 minutes of analysis, Rebecca approached the isolation chamber. "Mr. Morrison, I'm Dr. Torres. I've reviewed your medical history and the findings here. Can you tell me if you have any history of autoimmune disorders?" "My sister has lupus," Kyle said, "and my mother had rheumatoid arthritis. But I've never had any problems." Rebecca nodded, making notes on her data pad. "Any allergies? Chronic inflammation? Unusual healing patterns?" "I heal pretty fast," Kyle admitted. "Broke my arm when I was 12, and it healed in 4 weeks instead of 6. The doctor said I was just lucky." "Not luck," Rebecca muttered. She turned to Dr. Vellum. "I need to run some additional tests. With your permission, I'd like to take new samples using human medical protocols." Dr. Vellum gestured agreement. "Of course. We want to understand this phenomenon." Rebecca entered the isolation chamber wearing a full protective suit, though Kyle suspected it was more for show than actual protection. She took several new samples, explaining each step as she worked. "I'm taking 2 samples from your left arm," she said. "Both from the exact same location, just seconds apart." She placed both samples in the same dish and put it under a microscope connected to the external displays. Everyone in the medical center watched. The cells from the same location moved around each other peacefully. No aggression. No attacking. They simply existed side by side. "Now watch," Rebecca said. She took a sample from Kyle's right arm and added it to the dish. Immediately, the cells began moving aggressively. The cells from the left arm clustered together, treating the new cells as invaders. The right arm cells formed their own defensive formation. "They recognize cells from the same location," Rebecca explained. "But cells from different locations are treated as threats." Counselor Dresch stepped closer to the display. "How is this possible?" "They are all from the same organism." Rebecca took a deep breath. "Because human cells are territorial, not just against outside threats, but against each other." She brought up a comparison display showing cellular structures from several different species. "Look at these cells from a Vraxian," she pointed to one image. "They have clear markers that identify them as self to other Vraxian cells. No matter where in the body they come from, they recognize each other." She switched to another image. "These are Alkirium cells. Same thing. Universal recognition markers. Then she showed human cells. Human cells have location-specific markers. Skin cells identify as skin cells from a specific patch of skin. Blood cells identify as blood cells from a specific vessel. They don't have a universal human marker. They have local identity markers. Dr. Vellen's multiple eyes widened. But how do you survive? Your immune system should be constantly attacking your own body. It tries to, Rebecca said quietly. That's what autoimmune diseases are. But humans have developed incredibly sophisticated regulatory systems to prevent that. She brought up a new scan showing protein structures. These are regulatory proteins. They act as peacekeepers inside the human body. They constantly patrol, enforcing cooperation between different cell types. When these proteins fail or malfunction, humans develop diseases where their body attacks itself. Kyle watched from his seat, fascinated and disturbed by what he was learning about his own biology. So every human is constantly managing a civil war inside their body? Lisa asked. In a sense, yes, Rebecca confirmed. Human cells are hyper-competitive. They evolved that way because Earth is a hostile environment, even at the microscopic level. She pulled up data showing Earth's biological history. Our planet is filled with aggressive bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi. Human cells had to become aggressive to survive. But that aggression didn't just develop against outside threats. It became part of how our cells function at every level. Counselor Dresch studied the data carefully. I have reviewed medical files from many species. This level of cellular competition is unprecedented. It's why humans are so adaptable, Rebecca explained. Our cells are constantly competing and evolving, even within a single lifetime. It makes us resistant to diseases that would devastate species with more cooperative cellular structures. Dr. Vellen pulled up historical medical data. We have treated humans for various ailments over the past 2 years. We never noticed this before. Because you were looking at living systems, Rebecca said. Inside the body, human regulatory systems keep everything balanced. The aggression is controlled. But when you separate the cells and remove them from those regulatory systems, you see their true nature. She took another sample from Kyle and placed it under extreme magnification. Watch closely. The cells moved around, some dividing, others simply existing. But there was a tension to their movements, a constant awareness of space and territory. They're always ready to fight, Dr. Thran observed. Yes, Rebecca agreed. Human cells exist in a state of controlled aggression. It's normal for us. Captain Brandon Hayes, the station's security officer, entered the medical center. He was a large man with a stern expression. I've been monitoring this situation. Is there any danger to the station? No, Rebecca said firmly. Mr. Morrison is perfectly healthy. His cells are behaving exactly as human cells should behave. By attacking each other? Brandon asked skeptically. By being competitive, Rebecca corrected. There's a difference. Competition drives improvement. Human cells are constantly trying to be the best at their function. It's why human healing is so efficient. It's why our immune system is so aggressive. It's why humans are so damn hard to kill. Kyle spoke up from inside the isolation chamber. So I'm not sick? There's nothing wrong with me? Rebecca turned to him and smiled. No, Kyle, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just human. And apparently, being human is a lot more complicated than anyone in the galaxy realized. Counselor Dresch remained silent for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, he spoke. I must report this to the Galactic Council. This discovery has significant implications for humanity's membership application. What kind of implications? Lisa asked, concern clear in her voice. That remains to be seen, Counselor Dresch said. But the Council will want to understand. Why a species with such aggressive biology at the cellular level? has been able to develop civilization and maintain peaceful relations with others. Because we learn to control it, Kyle said quietly. If we can manage a war inside every cell of our body, we can manage to get along with each other. Dr. Velen looked at Kyle with new understanding. That is a profound statement, Mr. Morrison. Rebecca began packing up her equipment. I recommend we test more humans. We need to confirm that Kyle's cellular behavior is normal for our species and not an individual anomaly. Agreed, Counselor Dresch said. I will arrange for additional volunteers. As the meeting broke up, Kyle remained in the isolation chamber, watching his cells wage their microscopic battles on the display screens. He thought about every moment of his life, every breath, every heartbeat. Inside him, trillions of cells were competing, fighting, struggling for dominance. And somehow, it all worked together to keep him alive. Rebecca approached the chamber one more time before leaving. How do you feel, knowing what's happening inside you? Kyle considered the question carefully. Honestly, kind of proud. If my cells can put aside their differences long enough to keep me alive, that says something about what humans can do when we work together. Rebecca smiled. That's a good way to look at it. Get some rest, Kyle. Tomorrow is going to be interesting. After she left, Lisa brought Kyle a blanket and pillow. They're keeping you here overnight for observation. I know, Kyle said. Lisa, do you think the Council will reject humanity because of this? Lisa looked at the display showing the cellular warfare. I don't know. But I know one thing. If they reject us for being too aggressive, they'll be. 10 humans stood in the medical center, each waiting their turn for testing. Kyle watched from his observation room as Dr. Velen and Rebecca worked through the volunteers. They ranged in age from 19 to 67, from different continents, different backgrounds, different lives. But they all shared one thing in common. They were all about to prove that human biology was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The first volunteer was a young woman named Marie, a botanist who had been working on the station's agricultural deck. She sat calmly as Dr. Thren took samples from her arm, leg, and torso. Within an hour, the results appeared on the main display. Her cells behaved exactly like Kyle's. Aggressive, territorial, competitive. The second volunteer was an older man named George, a retired teacher who had volunteered to help with education programs on newly contacted worlds. Same results. One by one, every human tested showed identical cellular behavior. By the end of the day, the evidence was clear and undeniable. This wasn't an anomaly. This was humanity. News spread through the Galactic Council faster than anyone expected. By the next morning, representatives from 24 species had arrived at the medical station, demanding to see the research. The observation gallery above the medical center filled with alien dignitaries, all watching as human cells waged their microscopic wars. Admiral Christine Parker arrived on the third day, commanding a small fleet that had been conducting training exercises nearby. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Kyle had served under her command years ago and knew she was brilliant, tough, and fiercely protective of humanity's interests. Mr. Morrison, Christine greeted him as she entered his observation room. Still locked up, I see. They say it's for observation, Kyle replied. But I think they're just nervous. Christine looked through the window at the gathered aliens. They have reason to be. Your cells have caused quite a stir. I didn't do anything. I just showed up for a medical exam and revealed that humans are walking biological weapons, Christine said dryly. The Council is terrified. She pulled up a report on her datapad and handed it to Kyle. It was a formal document from the Galactic Council, outlining concerns about human membership. The language was diplomatic, but the message was clear. Humanity was being viewed as a potential threat. They're calling us unstable, Kyle said, reading through the document. Biologically unpredictable. Ambassador Krell is leading the opposition, Christine explained. He's a Vraxian, and he's been suspicious of humanity from the start. This gave him the ammunition he needed. The door opened, and Ambassador Krell entered with Counselor Dresch. Krell was a reptilian species, covered in dark green scales with yellow eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. He moved with a predator's grace. Admiral Parker, Krell said, his voice cold and formal. I did not expect the human military to become involved in a medical matter. I'm here as an observer, Christine replied smoothly, and as a friend to Mr. Morrison. Krell turned his attention to Kyle. Tell me, Mr. Morrison, do you feel your cells fighting inside you right now? No, Kyle answered honestly. I feel fine. Of course you do, Krell said, because you have no idea what is happening at the cellular level. Your body is a battlefield, and you are blind to it. With respect, Ambassador, Rebecca said, entering the room with Dr. Vaughn. That's not accurate. Humans are very aware of their internal state. We feel pain, discomfort, and illness. Our regulatory systems keep us informed. Krell's eyes narrowed. Your regulatory systems are all that stand between you and self-destruction. What happens when those systems fail? We get sick, Rebecca said simply. Just like any species. But your sickness is your own body attacking itself, Krell pressed. You carry the seeds of your own destruction in every cell. Christine stepped forward. Every species has biological vulnerabilities, Ambassador. Vraxians are susceptible to thermal shock. Alkirians can't process certain proteins. Mantids require very specific atmospheric conditions. Should we bar every species from the Council because they have weaknesses? This is different, Krell insisted. Human cellular aggression suggests a fundamental instability. How can we trust a species that cannot even trust its own cells? Counselor Dresch had been silent throughout the exchange, but now he spoke. The ambassador raises valid concerns. The Council has called an emergency session to discuss humanity's membership status. They're going to reject us, Lisa said quietly from the doorway. Not if we can prove that our biology makes us stronger, not weaker. Christine said. Dr. Nathan Cross arrived that afternoon with a team of geneticists and evolutionary biologists from Earth. He was a thin man with wild, gray hair and an excited energy that made everyone around him exhausted. Just watching him. This is incredible, Nathan exclaimed as he reviewed the cellular data. Do you understand what this means? Human evolution took a completely different path from every other intelligent species in the galaxy. He pulled up comparative data, filling the displays with information. Look at this. Most intelligent species evolved on worlds with relatively stable ecosystems. Their cellular cooperation developed because their environments rewarded cooperation. He switched to Earth's data. But Earth is chaos. Constant environmental changes. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteor impacts. And at the microscopic level, it's even worse. Earth's bacterial and viral ecosystems are incredibly aggressive. Nathan paced as he talked, his hands gesturing wildly. Human cells didn't just have to fight off outside invaders. They had to compete with each other for resources in an environment where cooperation could mean extinction if the environment changed. So our cells learned to be aggressive, Rebecca added. Because on Earth, the nice cells died out. Exactly, Nathan said. But here's the beautiful part. Humans didn't just evolve aggressive cells. We evolved sophisticated systems to manage that aggression. Our regulatory proteins are more complex than anything we've seen in other species. He brought up a molecular structure that looked like an intricate piece of art. This is a human regulatory protein. It doesn't just suppress aggression. It channels it. It turns cellular competition into cellular efficiency. Dr. Velen studied the structure with his multiple eyes. Remarkable. The complexity is extraordinary. It has to be, Nathan said, because human cells are constantly trying to outcompete each other. The regulatory systems don't stop the competition. They just make sure it stays productive instead of destructive. Counselor Dresch looked troubled. But this proves Ambassador Krell's point. Humans require constant internal regulation to remain stable. So does every complex system, Christine countered. A starship requires constant regulation to maintain course. An ecosystem requires constant balance to remain healthy. Complexity requires management. But you are not a starship, Krell said, appearing in the doorway with several other council members. You are a biological species. And biological species should be internally stable. Define stable, Rebecca challenged. Is a species stable if it can adapt to new environments? Is it stable if a single pathogen can wipe out entire populations? She pulled up historical data. In the past 2 years, there have been 7 viral outbreaks on council worlds. 3 of them were devastating to the local populations. Do you know how many humans died from those same viruses? She let the silence hang for a moment. 0. Because our aggressive immune systems destroyed the pathogens before they could establish themselves. Our cellular competition makes us resistant to diseases that devastate other species. You make it sound like a benefit, Krell said coldly. It is a benefit, Nathan jumped in. Human adaptability is legendary. We can live in deserts, Arctic regions, high altitudes, dense forests. We can survive injuries that would kill most other species. We heal fast, adapt quickly, and thrive in conditions that other species find impossible. All because your cells are constantly at war, Krell said. No. Kyle spoke up from his observation room. Everyone turned to look at him. Not war. Competition. There's a difference. He stood and approached the window. War is about destruction. Competition is about improvement. My cells aren't trying to destroy each other. They're trying to be better at their jobs than the cells around them. A semantic distinction, Krell dismissed. It's the most important distinction there is, Kyle insisted. Yes, human cells are competitive. But that competition is what drives us to be better. It's why humans never give up. It's why we keep fighting even when things look hopeless. It's literally built into every cell of our body. Christine nodded. And it's why human civilization has been peaceful in its dealings with the Council. We learned a long time ago that cooperation produces better results than conflict. If we can manage competition at the cellular level, we can certainly manage it at the social level. Counselor Dresch considered this carefully. The council session begins tomorrow. You will need to present this evidence and convince them that human biology is not a threat. It's not just about not being a threat, Rebecca said firmly. It's about showing them that our biology is an asset. Humanity brings something unique to the council. We bring resilience, adaptability, and the lived experience of managing internal conflict to achieve external peace. After the officials left, the human team gathered in the M. The emergency council session was scheduled to begin in 3 hours when the attack happened. Kyle was reviewing his presentation with Rebecca when alarms started blaring throughout the medical station. Red emergency lights flooded the corridors as automated systems activated security protocols. All personnel to secure locations, a computerized voice announced. This is not a drill. Unknown hostile forces have breached the station perimeter. Christine immediately activated her communication device. Parker to all human personnel. Report to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Through the station windows, Kyle could see small attack ships swarming around the medical center. They were dark, angular vessels he didn't recognize. Their weapons fired in precise bursts, disabling the station's defensive systems without destroying them. "They're not trying to destroy the station," Lisa observed. "They're trying to capture it." Dr. Velen rushed into the room, his 4 arms moving frantically. "They are heading for the medical research laboratory. They are after the human DNA samples. Who are they?" Christine demanded. "The Sovereignty," Counselor Dresch said, appearing behind Dr. Velen. "A hostile faction that has been raiding council facilities. We did not think they would dare attack a medical station." The building shook as an explosion rocked to lower levels. Kyle grabbed the edge of a table to steady himself. "They're breaching the research labs," Captain Brandon Hayes reported over the communication system. "We need to evacuate the human samples before they reach them." Rebecca grabbed several storage containers. "Help me. We need to secure the DNA data and physical samples." Kyle and Lisa assisted her in gathering the research materials, while Christine coordinated with Brandon's security forces. The sounds of weapons fire echoed through the corridors. "They're moving fast," Brandon reported. "Professional military tactics. They knew exactly where to hit us." Dr. Thren appeared on the communication screen, his voice panicked. "They have reached the containment area. They are downloading our research database." "Cut the main power," Christine ordered. "Kill the network connection." "If we do that, we lose life support systems," Brandon said. "Then let them take the data," Rebecca said grimly. "But we cannot let them take the physical samples. Those can be weaponized." She sealed the containers and handed them to Kyle. "Get these to the emergency evacuation pods. If they capture you, destroy them. What are you going to do?" Kyle asked. "Stay here and wipe our backup systems," Rebecca said. "Go." Kyle and Lisa ran through the corridors toward the evacuation area. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of combat. The Sovereignty forces were moving through the station with frightening efficiency. They reached the evacuation pod bay and found it filled with civilians from dozens of species, all trying to escape. A Sovereignty soldier appeared at the far entrance, weapon raised. Brandon tackled the soldier from behind, and they crashed to the floor in a violent struggle. More security officers arrived, pushing back the attackers and giving the civilians time to evacuate. "Get in a pod," Brandon shouted at Kyle. "Now!" Kyle hesitated, looking at the DNA samples in his hands. If he evacuated with them, he could keep them safe. But if the Sovereignty was specifically after human biological material, he would be leading them right to it. "Lisa, take these," he said, shoving the containers into her arms. "Get them to Admiral Parker's ship." "What are you doing?" Lisa demanded. "Creating a diversion," Kyle said. He grabbed an empty container from a medical cart and ran in the opposite direction, making sure he was visible to the Sovereignty soldiers. "There." One of them shouted in a language his translator rendered as harsh and clipped. "The human. He has the samples." 3 soldiers broke away from the main group and chased Kyle through the corridors. He ducked into a side passage, his military training coming back to him. He wasn't armed, but he knew how to move, how to use the environment. He led them away from the evacuation area, through maintenance tunnels and service corridors. But the Sovereignty soldiers were well-trained and coordinated. They were hurting him, cutting off escape routes, driving him toward a dead end. Kyle found himself in a small laboratory, surrounded. The soldiers raised their weapons, but their leader held up a hand. "We do not want to kill you," the leader said. His species was humanoid, but covered in thick, armored plates. "We want the human genetic material. Give us the samples, and you will not be harmed." Kyle held up the empty container. "You want this? Come and get it." The leader's eyes narrowed. He scanned the container and realized it was empty. "Where are the real samples?" "Somewhere you'll never find them," Kyle said. The leader struck Kyle across the face. sending him sprawling to the floor. You humans think you are clever. We monitored your research. We know what your cells can do. Imagine a virus that could trigger human cellular aggression. Your own body would tear itself apart from the inside. Kyle felt blood running from his split lip. That's why you attacked? To weaponize human biology. Your species is a biological marvel, the leader said. But you are too dangerous to exist in the council. Better to study you, understand you, and then eliminate you before you become a threat. We're not a threat, Kyle said. Not yet, the leader agreed. But your aggressive biology, combined with your technological advancement, makes you too dangerous to ignore. The sovereignty will not wait for humans to realize their potential. The sound of weapons fire grew closer. Christine's voice came over the station communication system. All sovereignty forces, this is Admiral Christine Parker of the human fleet. You are surrounded. Surrender your weapons and prepare to be taken into custody. The leader looked at his soldiers and made a decision. Kill him. Take any tissue sample you can and retreat. One of the soldiers raised his weapon. Kyle closed his eyes. Knowing there was no escape, the shot never came. Dr. Alan Foster crashed through a service vent, followed by Nathan and several council security officers. The room erupted in chaos as the two groups clashed. Kyle scrambled to his feet and helped disarm one of the sovereignty soldiers. Within minutes, the fighting was over. The sovereignty forces in the laboratory were captured. Throughout the station, other teams were being rounded up or fleeing to their ships. You okay? Alan asked, helping Kyle to his feet. I'll live, Kyle said, wiping blood from his mouth. How did you find me? Tracked your communicator, Nathan said. Reckless move, running off like that. It worked, Kyle pointed out. Admiral Parker entered the laboratory with Councilor Dresch and a figure Kyle had never seen before. It was an ancient-looking being, taller than any species Kyle had encountered, with skin that seemed to shimmer between different colors. This is Keeper Thalis, Councilor Dresch introduced. One of the eldest members of the council. One of the eldest members of the eldest members of the eldest members of the council. He has been observing the situation. Keeper Thalis moved slowly, examining the captured sovereignty soldiers with eyes that seemed to see through matter itself. When he spoke, his voice was like wind through ancient trees. The sovereignty fears what they do not understand, Thalis said. And humanity is unlike anything they have encountered. He turned to Kyle, studying him with an intensity that made Kyle want to step back. Your biology troubles many in the council. They see danger in your cellular aggression. We're not dangerous, Kyle said. Are you not? Thalis asked. Your cells wage war inside you with every breath. Your immune system attacks with a ferocity that disturbs peaceful species. Your capacity for violence is written into your genetic code. But we choose peace, Kyle insisted. Thalis moved closer. Yes, that is what makes you remarkable. Not your aggression, but your choice to control it. He gestured to the captured sovereignty soldiers. These beings saw only your potential for violence. They did not see your potential for restraint. Rebecca arrived with Lisa, both carrying the secured DNA samples. The backup systems are wiped. They got some data, but not enough to weaponize. They will try again, Thalis said. The knowledge that human cells can be turned against humans will spread. Others will seek to exploit this weakness. It's not a weakness, Alan said firmly. It's a challenge we've already overcome. Human bodies manage cellular competition every day. We understand autoimmune disorders better than any species because we've had to. Nathan pulled up research data on his portable display. Look at this. Human regulatory systems are the most sophisticated biological control mechanisms we've ever studied. We don't just suppress cellular aggression. We channel it into productive functions. He showed molecular structures that controlled cell division, immune response, and tissue repair. Every one of these systems evolved to manage competition, to turn it from destructive to constructive. Your body is a lesson in cooperation despite conflict, Tallis observed. And your civilization mirrors this. Christine stepped forward. Humanity has been part of the Provisional Council for 2 years. In that time, we've shared technology, provided medical aid, and assisted in diplomatic missions. We've proven we can cooperate with other species. While your cells wage war inside you, one of the sovereignty soldiers spat from the floor. You are biological time bombs. Kyle looked at the soldier. No, we're proof that aggression doesn't have to lead to violence. That competition can drive improvement. That you can have conflict in your nature and still choose peace. Keeper Thallis was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke to Counselor. Kyle couldn't sleep. He stood in the observation deck of Admiral Parker's ship, watching the medical station slowly rotate against the backdrop of stars. Tomorrow, the Galactic Council would vote on humanity's membership. Everything his species had worked for over the past 2 years came down to one decision. Thinking deep thoughts? Lisa asked, joining him at the window. Wondering if I said enough, Kyle admitted. Or maybe said too much. You were honest, Lisa said. That's what mattered. The door opened and Rebecca entered, carrying a datapad. You both should see this. The sovereignty prisoners are talking. She pulled up an interrogation recording. The sovereignty leader sat in a detention cell, speaking to Commander Derek Walsh, the human military strategist who had arrived to help with security. Your research was incomplete, the sovereignty leader was saying. You thought you could control human cellular aggression with regulatory proteins, but you failed to account for the emotional component. Derek leaned forward. Explain. We attempted to isolate the aggressive properties of human cells, the leader continued. We wanted to create a pathogen that would trigger cellular warfare inside human bodies. A weapon specifically designed to destroy your species. But it didn't work, Derek said. No, the leader admitted. The cells attacked everything. They destroyed our test subjects within hours. We could not control the aggression once we removed the regulatory systems. Because you only took half the equation, Rebecca muttered, watching the recording. The leader continued. We analyzed your regulatory proteins. They are remarkable, sophisticated beyond anything we have encountered. But they do more than just suppress aggression. He looked directly at the camera. They respond to neural signals, to emotions. Human cellular regulation is linked to your psychological state. Kyle felt his breath catch. What does that mean? Rebecca paused the recording. It means your cells listen to your brain. When you're stressed, your immune system changes. When you're calm, your healing improves. The connection between human psychology and biology is deeper than we realized. She pulled up new research data. I've been analyzing the samples we secured. Human regulatory proteins have receptors for neurological signals. Stress hormones, endorphins, even emotional states affect how your cells behave. That's why meditation helps people heal, Lisa said quietly. Why positive thinking affects recovery. Exactly, Rebecca confirmed. Human cells don't just compete blindly. They respond to conscious control. Not directly, but through the regulatory systems. You can actually influence your own cellular behavior through your mental state. Kyle thought about his military training, the breathing exercises before combat, the mental preparation. He had always thought it was just psychological, but maybe it was biological too. So when I stay calm, my cells cooperate better? He asked. In simple terms, yes, Rebecca said. And when humans learned to manage their emotions, to control their stress responses, they were also learning to manage their cellular aggression. She resumed the recording. The sovereignty leader was speaking again. This is why humans are dangerous, he said. Not because of their biology, but because they have learned to control it. A species that can consciously influence their own cellular behavior has power we cannot predict. Derek smiled coldly. And that terrifies you. It should terrify everyone, the leader said. Humans are not just aggressive. They are adaptable. They learn. They evolve. Not just over generations, but within their own lifetimes. Give humanity a few more centuries, and they will surpass every species in the council. The recording ended. Kyle, Lisa, and Rebecca sat in silence, processing what they had heard. He's right, Rebecca said finally. About the evolution part. Human cells do adapt within a lifetime. It's why we develop immunity to diseases. Why our bodies adjust to different climates and altitudes. We're constantly evolving, constantly adapting. Is that a good thing? Lisa asked. For us, yes, Rebecca said. For species that fear change, it's terrifying. The next morning, Kyle stood in the council chamber alongside Christine, Rebecca, Nathan, and Alan. Keeper Thalas presided over the session from an ancient seat at the center of the room. Representatives from every council species filled the chamber. Ambassador Krell was the first to speak. The events of yesterday prove my point. The sovereignty attacked this station specifically to obtain human genetic material. They recognized the danger humanity poses and sought to neutralize it. They sought to weaponize it, Christine corrected. There's a difference. The result is the same, Krell insisted. Human biology is a target, a vulnerability, and one that puts the entire council at risk. Councillor Dresch spoke next. The medical research has confirmed that human cellular behavior is unprecedented. Every sample tested shows the same aggressive competitive patterns. This is not an anomaly, but a fundamental aspect of human biology. And it should disqualify them from membership, Krell said. Keeper Thalas raised a hand for silence. Before we vote, I would like to conduct one more test. With Mr. Morrison's permission. Kyle stepped forward. What kind of test? A simple one, Thalas said. He gestured to Dr. Vellon. Take a blood sample from Mr. Morrison. Place it in a containment dish. Then ask him to meditate, to calm his mind completely. Kyle sat down and offered his arm. Dr. Thren drew blood and placed it in a dish, under a microscope connected to the chamber's main display. The cells appeared on screen, moving with their usual aggressive energy. Now, Thalas said to Kyle, clear your mind. Focus on peace, on cooperation, on harmony. Kyle closed his eyes and drew on his military meditation training. He slowed his breathing, relaxed his muscles, and focused on a single point of calm at the center of his thoughts. He imagined his cells as soldiers, not fighting each other, but working together toward a common goal. Minutes passed. The chamber remained silent. Remarkable, Dr. Vellon whispered. Kyle opened his eyes and looked at the display. His cells had changed their behavior. They were still moving, still active, but the aggressive clustering had decreased. The cells moved around each other with less hostility, more coordination. He is influencing his own cellular behavior through conscious thought, Keeper Thalas said. This is what makes humans unique. Not their aggression, but their ability to consciously manage it. Nathan stepped forward. Every species has biological drives. Hunger, fear, reproduction. But most species are slaves to those drives. Humans learn to control them, to choose when to eat, how to respond to fear, how to manage their reproductive urges. You are suggesting humans can control their cellular aggression the same way? Councillor Dresch asked. We've been doing it for thousands of years, Rebecca said. Every time a human chooses to stay calm under stress, they're influencing their cellular behavior. Every time they practice meditation, exercise, or emotional regulation, they're managing their internal biology. Alan pulled up historical data. Look at human civilization. We went from constant tribal warfare to global cooperation. Not because our biology changed, but because we learned to control our aggressive instincts. We learned that cooperation produces better results than conflict, Christine added. And we've been teaching that lesson to ourselves for generations. Keeper Thalis turned to Kyle. Stand. Mr. Marson, let the Council see what humanity truly is. Kyle stood, still connected to the monitoring equipment. On the display, his cells continued their modified behavior, more cooperative, but still competitive, still active, still fundamentally human. This is a human being, Tully said to the chamber. Biological warfare rages inside him with every breath. His cells compete for resources, struggle for dominance, fight for survival. By all rights, he should be a creature of pure aggression and violence. He paused, letting the words sink in. But he is not. He stands before us calm, rational, and peaceful. Not because his biology dictates it, but because he chooses it. Every moment of every day, humans make this choice. They feel aggression and choose peace. They experience competition and choose cooperation. How long can they maintain that choice? Krell challenged. What happens when human regulatory systems fail? When stress overwhelms their control? The same thing that happens when any species faces overwhelming stress, Kyle said quietly. We struggle. We fail. We make mistakes. But then we learn from them and try again. He looked around the chamber. You're right to be concerned about human biology. We are aggressive. We are competitive. Our cells wage war inside us every second. But that's exactly why you should accept us into the Council. Because we know what it's like to manage internal conflict, he continued. We know how to turn competition into cooperation. We know how to choose peace even when our nature screams for war. And we can teach that to the galaxy. Rebecca stepped forward. Humanity offers to share all our medical research. Our understanding of cellular regulation, immune function, and biological management. This knowledge could help other species develop better treatments for their own biological challenges. We also offer our experience, Christine said. Centuries of learning to manage conflict, both internal and external. We've made mistakes, learned from them, and developed systems to promote cooperation over competition. Nathan added, and we offer our adaptability. Human biology allows us to thrive in environments that other species find impossible. We can go,